Hi, my name's Sue Grant from Berthon, and I'm sitting aboard FPB78-2, Grey Wolf 2, with her lovely owner Peter Watson. And we're in Lymington at our marina on a grey day in England in very early spring. So we're going to have a chat this morning about the Grey Wolf project, because of course Grey Wolf 2 is the second of two FPBs, the first being FPB78-6, which affectionately known as Little Grey Wolf, which Peter bought in New Zealand and then steamed back across the Pacific to the Channel Islands where he lives, and then hence to Lymington. So that was a huge adventure, and you can read a bit about that on our website. And then, of course, whilst that was happening, this amazing boat was being born in New Zealand, and she too has made an even more exciting journey from New Zealand and is back here in Lymington on the same dock as her little sister docked at a few years ago. So, Peter, Grey Wolf, Little Grey Wolf, and the trip from New Zealand back to the Channel Islands and then here. Can you tell me a little bit about that trip, the route and the crew?
It was very interesting. I had done a lot of sailing, both sail and power, but never done any very large trips. And I looked at shipping the boat back and then thought, no, let's drive it back.
We all thought you were completely mad. You know that, don't you?
Yes, yeah. And I know Steve thought I'd never make it.
Yeah, that's Steve Dashy.
Yeah. So I assembled a group of individuals. We were very lucky. We had a retired naval architect from the MOD and a retired chief engineer, and myself, and we went down to New Zealand, prepared the boat. We also had on board a couple of apprentices from one from the yard who came all the way back, and an apprentice from Berthon who came all the way up to Tahiti with us, and then we had another apprentice join us.
I think we had to phase them before you broke them. Yeah.
Probably true. I think. Yeah. So we had 5 people on board Little Grey Wolf, which was quite a lot really, actually, because the accommodation really was only for 3 or 3 different cabins. But anyhow, we made our way. We had an interesting route because we went up and used the countercurrents that are north of the equator. So we went very far north, went up to Tahiti, and then we went right up north and used the countercurrents to take us all the way into Panama. From Panama, we came out of there and came across to the Azores and then back to Guernsey.
And how long did that take?
It was 3 months.
Yeah, it was quick.
Yeah, I think it was pretty quick.
Very quick.
Yeah.
And then, of course, whilst all that was happening, Big Grey Wolf, this boat, was being born. And you must have learned a lot, putting in those major solid sea miles about what this boat had to have, because she was built for a bigger adventure yet.
Yeah, I've always admired, and the naval architect that we had on board, admired Steve's designs from the point of view of capability and comfort. Maybe the looks are not quite, well, they look a little industrial, but people are very surprised.
Purposeful,
yes,
we like to say.
Yes, people are very surprised when we get inside. So we learned a few things, I think, on the way up, and I think one of the 2 main things: make sure you've got the spares on board you might need. Certainly in the Pacific, you're miles away from anywhere, and about access and just being able to get to things easily. And I was really lucky with working with Steve on the design of this boat, because there was a guy called Pete who'd previously owned a 64. There was Steve, who'd obviously got lots and lots of experience, and myself, and it was very much a collaborative process, I think, of building the boat. Obviously, Steve designed the main hull, and it was one of a number of successful hulls that he's designed. But then we all worked together as a group in terms of what do we want to decide, how do we want it to look, what equipment do we want to put. Each boat's slightly different. Because
of course these are the owners of the 378s, because Steve took hull 1, Cochise, and she's actually also here at Berthon at the moment, having a refit. 2 is this boat, and 3 was Iron Lady 2.
Yeah.
The second of Pete's FPBs, as you say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we worked together and worked on the design. In the meantime, while I'd been back in the UK, I'd gone back to college and passed my chief mate 3,000 ton.
Huge job.
Yeah.
Lots of paperwork.
Yeah, lots of paperwork. Learnt an awful lot. And then I went down and spent 9 months in the yard in New Zealand, just making sure the boat was built as I wanted it, which was great fun. And it was really interesting working with the New Zealand guys. They're just so good at aluminium welding, and the fit out internally is superb.
Yeah, I mean the boat looks, she's done a lot of miles now and she looks just out of the box in many respects, doesn't she?
Yeah, absolutely.
And for you, one of your really important things was that this boat would be MCA Category 0.
Yeah.
And everybody looked at you and said, so why?
We wanted to be able to take fare-paying passengers, but that wasn't the main objective. The MCA have got a reputation for years of having a standard which is probably one of the best standards internationally. So I wanted to make sure the boat was as safe as it possibly could be. It didn't need any reference to a safe port, and that's one of the things about Code Zero, and that it passed everything that the MCA could throw at it. Mm. So it is, out of the three, the only one that is actually coded to 0.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So when, after trials and everything else, and you left New Zealand, and of course you came back to the Channel Islands and UK the pretty way, via the ice. Yep. So extraordinary route. And so during that trip, that series of adventures, what was the standout part of the trip home?
I think it's got to be Antarctica. It was just wonderful going down there and seeing the animals down there and being able to interact with the wildlife down there.
And what about the route to get there?
Right, well, so the route was quite interesting. We went New Zealand, Tahiti, and then to Tahiti to the Marquesa Islands. The Gambier Islands. On the Gambier Islands, we'd shipped out fuel in 45-gallon drums.
Seriously?
Yeah, filled the boat up from 45-gallon drums. And then we went on to past the Pitcairn Islands and on to Christmas Island, and then into Chile.
And what was Chile like?
Chile is an absolutely lovely country with lovely people. It was interesting. We spent quite a bit of time in one of their naval bases, and I hadn't realised that the British Navy does a lot of training for the Chilean Navy. Mm-hmm. And they did ask me interesting questions about, which place was the worst weather, North Sea or the Magellan Straits. Mm-hmm. And
what did you tell them?
Well, I have to say that basically crossing to Antarctica was definitely more adventurous than the North Sea. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The weather through there goes through, it seems to have a regular cycle of every 3 days, and you have to go out into the rough weather to get the smooth weather to then
make the transit.
Yeah, make the transit.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And of course, once you got to the Falklands, you met up with Iron Lady 2, yep. 78-3. And so then what happened? The two boats went in company?
Yeah, no, we met up with them in Chile.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, so we met up with them in Chile, and then we went down through Chile and then to Antarctica together. Spent a huge amount of time down in Antarctica, about 3 weeks I think it was we were down there. And then we came back up, we split off to the Falkland Islands, and they carried back up to Chile.
Mm. And that must have been, because I know you and Pete, affectionately known as the two Petes, sort of dubbed it a sort of family cruise to Antarctica. Yeah. I mean, it was there was a bit more to it, yeah?
Yeah, there was a bit more to it. It certainly is, it was pretty challenging. I was glad that we had full crew on board, because you would stick your pick down somewhere. The charts were useless, more or less. You'd stick your pick down somewhere, and then you'd be perfectly fine with the ice going in the opposite direction, and then the wind would change and the ice would come towards you, and you had to debate whether you could push the smaller stuff off or whether it was time to lift the anchor and move on.
Wow. And tell me a little bit about the wildlife.
We saw a huge number of orca down there, and we've got some absolutely fantastic drone footage of orca. I went ashore with penguins, and sort of, I actually have to say that by the end of the trip I was penguined out. And seals, all sorts of wildlife down there. But it's a very special place.
Yeah. And so then back up into Europe. And so how many FPB miles do you think you've done between the two wolves?
Between the two wolves, I would think that I'm way over 80,000 nautical miles between the two. I think it's probably actually more like 100,000.
Wow. So this boat must have done the equivalent of circumnavigation.
Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
She's got to have, hasn't she?
Yeah.
And so what do you love about her most?
Just her capability and comfort, and the fact we can have family and guests on board, and we've got some accommodation for crew if we need crew, or sometimes we do it without crew. You don't go looking for bad weather, but you know the boat can handle it if you do hit bad weather. We're sort of, certainly one of the most interesting things was, I think, in Chile we anchored and we had 100 knots on the nose.
Wow.
And the anchor and all the gear just held, no problem at all.
So if you're thinking of a family trip to Antarctica, this is probably a good choice of boat.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Thank you so much, Peter. It's so lovely to be back on the Big Wolf. I think I saw her when she was first launched in New Zealand, of course, and she's always been one of my favourites. And you've been so amazing to work with, and it's been such fun to follow and be part of the Grey Wolf adventure.
Well, Sue, I've really enjoyed it, and I've really enjoyed working with Berthon. They've been very helpful and supportive and worked with me.
We think you're completely mad, obviously.
Yeah, so it's fun.